And we'll get started. So this is going to be some what's going on in Israel today in technology, because it's pretty amazing. And so there's currently more than 6,000 active startups in Israel today. I'm going to spend 6 seconds on each. So thanks for spending the next 10 hours with us. But actually, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to give you some highlights. So what started to get me interested in this was the book Startup Nation. And I'll hold it up. We actually have a copy of it in the TBA library. You know, if you
Fascinating book. I read it.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. And it is from 2009. So some of the things that are in the book in terms of the details of what companies aren't the same today, but in terms of how it got there and how Israel became a startup nation, that really is pretty similar. It goes into a lot more depth in the book than what we're going to see today. So I've got a bunch of videos that I want to show on lots of topics by talking about boycott, and that gives us an introduction to the topic. We'll talk the history, how and why Israel got to where it is today, and then it'll really open up when I highlight 4 areas: water and agriculture, automotive technology, medical, and cybersecurity. And then, you know, if we have time, I got some stuff in there just for fun. So hopefully we'll get to see that. Okay, so I'm going to get started by showing this video, The Ultimate Guide to Boycotting Israel.
We get it. Israel can be a controversial place. And there are some voices who are calling to boycott our country.
So this video is for them.
Here are 10 ways to effectively boycott the state of Israel. Care about the environment? You can kiss your dream of an electric car goodbye.
Israeli startups like StoreDot and previously Better Place developed the technologies and batteries used today for electric cars around the world.
So, okay, stick with a regular car, right? But stay away from Waze. It's Israeli technology. And yeah, Google Map also, which bought Waze.
And make sure you're not using Mobileye, an Israeli camera technology that prevents car accidents. Mobileye is used by over 25 car manufacturers and is installed in 15 million cars worldwide.
The next thing to roll out is sending emails.
The algorithm used for sending emails was developed by an Israeli at Ben Gurion University in 1980.
But don't worry, you can still receive emails, unless you use antivirus software.
Antivirus and firewall technology originated in the state of Israel, so you'll have to remove all that too.
Updating your website might also be difficult if you're using Wix, as that's an Israeli company too.
When it comes to your laptop, you'll have to make sure it isn't using an Intel Premium processor or Celeron, since they were both developed in Israel.
Using Windows, Windows XP was entirely developed in Israel, and Microsoft is constantly developing technology at their Israeli R&D center.
But Youssef, what if I use Apple?
Well, Emily, you're out of luck with that too. Even if you have an iPhone, the 4G chipset was developed in, wait for it, Israel. Don't forget that SMS technology also developed in Israel. So even if you have a phone that's not 4G, you can forget texting.
That's okay. I can store my data externally or on the cloud after I throw away my phone and computer, right?
Not quite. Almost all data storage technology has been developed in Israel or by Israelis. Even the USB is an Israeli invention.
Once you've ruled out almost all technology, you'll have to toss out those medicines too. Israeli technology is responsible for groundbreaking medical advancements and drug treatments for diseases like
cancer, HIV, MS, diabetes, liver disease, or sleep apnea.
And if you have a medical emergency, well, be sure to avoid a heart stent. Or using the Israeli-developed pill cam for procedures like colonoscopies.
It's also best to avoid vaccines, since many of them have been developed in Israel. And newer, more effective antibiotics, also developed in Israel.
So with medicine and technology pretty much ruled out, what's left to boycott? Even the food we eat?
Almost, Emily. Israeli technology has helped provide water for communities and farming for millions of people around the world.
Israeli company Netzafim, present in 110 countries, developed micro and drip irrigation that literally made deserts bloom. So there you have it, technology, medicine, and even food.
Well, I guess boycotting Israel isn't as easy as they make it sound.
Correct. And let's not forget that hundreds of thousands of lives have been saved by Israeli technology and medical advancements.
But hey, you want to boycott Israel? Now you have the official guide. Good luck.
So I thought that was a nice, fun way to introduce the topic, but I'm going to be getting into some of those things in a little bit more as we go along with some other videos. But I want to show this video next about the history and how and when did Israel get to be a startup nation, and then we'll stop for some questions after this video.
Israel, with an estimated 6,000 startups, has the largest number of startups per capita in the world by far. It ranks third on the list of countries with the most companies on the NASDAQ, only surpassed by the US and China. And these aren't some two-bit companies either. Israeli startups like Wix and Fiverr are killing it out there. Waze sold to Google for $1.3 billion, and more recently, Mobileye to Intel for $15.3 billion, among many others. So how did Israel, a tiny country with a population of only around 8.5 million people, become known as the startup nation, all while fending off near constant war and without any natural resources to speak of? Israeli high tech is booming. The country produces more startup companies than India, Japan, Korea, Canada, and the UK. It's a research and development powerhouse, with Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Intel among the many companies relying on Israel's more than 300 R&D centers to keep them on the cutting edge. In fact, Israel was just named 5th on Bloomberg's annual list of most innovative countries and #1 for research and development. Now, throw into the mix the barrage of international boycotts and violent conflicts, and you're left scratching your head. How did this wave of Israeli innovation come to be? Was it always like this? Not even close. Ever since its founding in 1948, all the way up to the early 90s, Israel was not in the best economic shape. With very few resources, the newly established state was a semi-socialist backwater and was basically out of money from the get-go. And resources were spread even thinner when nearly 700,000 Holocaust survivors and Jews from Muslim countries immigrated, basically doubling the country's population. Israel managed to scrape by financially by accepting controversial reparation payments from Germany in 1953. Still, the decades that followed didn't bring much in the way of economic improvement. The 1970s and 80s saw Israel fall victim to a terrible recession and hyperinflation, which rose as high as 445% by 1984. So how did Israel pull a complete 180, earning the nickname of Startup Nation in little more than a decade? Well, first, we have to back up a century. Now, Jewish tradition had always valued education, so naturally, the early Israelis invested in knowledge and brainpower, establishing the Technion Institute of Technology in 1912, Hebrew University in 1925, and the Weizmann Institute of Science in 1934. Okay, but Israel isn't exactly the only country with universities. So what was different about Israel? Well, the answer might just lie within the unique challenges the country has faced. Israeli culture from its earliest inception needed to think outside the box in order to survive. Israel won its 1948 War of Independence in spite of a tremendous lack of resources and power, thanks to more than a bit of scrappiness. In that war, Arab forces placed a siege on the main Tel Aviv-Jerusalem highway, barring the entry to Jerusalem from all shipments of food and supplies. To bypass the blockade, the Israelis came up with an ad hoc alternative, the secret construction of a makeshift path along the Judean mountains that they dubbed the Burma Road. This early example just shows the entire MO of Israeli innovation. Time and time again, when faced with one obstacle or another, Israel would have to blaze an alternate path, a proverbial Burma Road. So what were these obstacles? Well, there was the country's tiny size and economy. Oh, and the small problem of being totally surrounded by enemy states. But one of Israel's greatest challenges was survival without resources like water and oil. Israel had to become an expert in innovative water and energy conservation just in order to survive. Simcha Blas was the best-known water engineer in pre-state Palestine. Early in his career, a farmer drew Blas's attention to a big tree growing in his backyard, seemingly without any water, while all the surrounding trees were stunted. Blas dug below the dry surface and discovered why. Dripping water from a leaky pipe was reaching the roots of this one tree. Blas became engrossed in the concept of drip irrigation, and by the early 1960s, he created an extremely efficient irrigation device that used friction and water pressure to leak drops of water at regular intervals. Half a century later, this innovation is revered by scientists and environmentalists alike. But back in the 60s, it was simply the only way water-starved Israel could afford to irrigate crops. Blas was motivated to help other countries struggling with water resources, ultimately helping to feed the populations of over 110 countries worldwide. But back to high tech. What launched Israel's game-changing high-tech boom of the 1990s? Would you believe it if I told you a failed military program likely had something to do with it? After years of relying heavily on arms imported from other countries, only to be slapped by embargo after embargo, Israel decided to invest in the manufacture of its own arms. Israel Aerospace Industries developed the Lavi fighter jet, a wildly advanced Israeli innovation, but also crushingly expensive. The huge project was abandoned in 1987, leaving 5,000 of the most brilliant scientists and engineers looking for work. Suddenly, a combination of creative energy and cutting-edge knowledge was let loose in the emerging high-tech market. It was just at this moment in time, the turn of the decade, when the Iron Curtain fell at last and Soviet Jews were free to leave the former Soviet Union. This included a huge influx of scientists and engineers, not to mention over 700,000 new consumers entering the country at the perfect moment, just when the high-tech sector began to take off. Another big push towards high-tech was the Yozma program, initiated by the Israeli government in 1993, which aims to attract foreign investments in new startups that were in the incubator stage. This was one of the ways Israel took advantage of the all-new engineering talent from the Soviet Union. It formed an incubator that nurtured startups and created huge incentives for entrepreneurs to take a chance and launch new companies. And in just a few years, Israel had become one of the world's largest and most advanced tech hubs. Many believe that there is another element to Israel's culture of innovation. Yossi Matias, founder of Google's R&D center in Israel, categorizes it as Israeli chutzpah. No matter what you call it, Israelis have been known to be assertive and audacious, with little respect or tolerance for the status quo. They refuse to accept situations as they are if they need improvement. This type of chutzpah seems to view every obstacle as simply another thing to work around, not an impassable problem, but rather a solution waiting to emerge. This has been true of Israeli solutions to mundane issues like traffic navigation or simplifying web design, thank you Waze and Wix, but it has also been true when addressing larger humanitarian problems. In 1997, Dr. Amit Goffer, already a successful inventor, was in an ATV accident that left him quadriplegic. Having experienced the results of a spinal cord injury, he wanted to help others in similar situations, so he invented Rewalk, something out of a Ridley Scott movie. The Rewalk is a powered wearable exoskeleton which enables people with lower limb paralysis to walk again. When he introduced his invention, doctors were convinced it was a sham until they saw their paralyzed patients walk. Since that old Burma road, challenging the norm has become the norm for Israeli society, no matter how discouraging that norm may be. But there's another, maybe less obvious factor that plays a major role in Israel's innovation: army service. Israel requires 18-year-old men and women to serve in the military and defend the country for up to 3 years. So what is it about compulsory military service that could help boost Israeli technologies? If anything, doesn't it just set potential entrepreneurs back 3 years while they wait to get on with their lives in the private sector? Not really. Imagine a workforce that gains advanced know-how at an early age using the highest technology available and in scenarios where the stakes aren't financial success, but rather life and death. They regularly practice decision-making in an environment where failure is just not an option. Young soldiers learn to be self-reliant and resourceful. Superiors often tell their subordinates to go figure it out, giving the soldiers the freedom to think differently and to own the situation. These young adults become natural leaders with maturity and perspective gained at a much earlier age than in other countries. Nowhere are these traits more evident than the crack cyber intelligence team known as Unit 8200. Attaining almost mythical status, the highly secretive 8200 recruits the best of the best. Hackers, programmers, would-be engineers. It's like the Avengers of tech wizards. And these wizards go on to accomplish some pretty amazing things. 8200 recruit Avishai Avrahami was hacking into the systems of enemy countries in the 90s before he founded Wix. Gil Shved was decrypting code before he invented the first ever commercial firewall and VPN in 1993. And there are hundreds of other stories just like these. Unit 8200 alumni have founded more than 1,000 startups and have an alumni network that fuels and nurtures new startups all over. So many factors have played a part in Israel's development as a startup nation, from early innovation vital to survival, to immigration, to Israeli and Jewish culture, to IDF service. And Israeli startups are still mixing it up and breaking new ground. Until now, the Israeli model has been create an amazing startup and then sell it off to one of the giants for millions or even billions. But now, many startups are instead choosing to continue their growth on their own with the aim of becoming giants themselves. Israel seems to be on the verge of graduating from startup nation to an industrial global powerhouse. But this creates a new challenge. How will Israel manage to scale up without losing the scrappy, innovative nature that led to its success to begin with? Thanks for watching. See you guys next week.
Okay, well, that's a lot of information, but coming up, we're gonna highlight some of the ones that I found the most interesting. So before we get started talking about water and agriculture technology, does anybody have any questions? Okay, then I'm going to jump in. So we're gonna look at a few videos here on this topic. How Israel goes about not wasting the precious water they have. I'm going to take a look at a company called Watergen, which just done an amazing job of putting drinking water out of the air. And then we're going to look at some real wild and crazy agriculture tech. So strap in, and we'll go through this section, and then I'll stop for questions.
In a few years, it is estimated that more than half of the world's population will suffer from water shortages. Without a sufficient amount of water, billions of people will be in places without access to drinking water, and their lives will be in danger. To understand this challenge and find solutions, we want to show you on this Earth Day how Israel, a country that is 60% desert and located in one of the driest regions in the world, managed to become an example in water management. Let us tell you about the Israeli water miracle through the example of the life cycle of a small drop of water. Despite Israel's arid climate, little rainfall, and few sweet water sources, Israel has over 270 kilometers of beach terrain. So, why does one drop of salt water matter to us? Let's take this drop from the Mediterranean Sea. Then, we will send it to one of Israel's desalination facilities, some of which are the largest in the world. Our little drop of water will go through an advanced process to become drinking water. This drop that we took out of the Mediterranean Sea is desalinated and will reach a home of a family who will use it to shower, wash dishes, or to drink. After this drop of water manages to keep the dishes clean, it is not discarded. This drop of ours is sent to a water recycling facility and goes through a process that enables us to use it again for other purposes. Close to 90% of Israel's water is recycled, almost 4 times more than the next top recycling country. After the drop of water completes the recycling process, it is sent to be used for agricultural purposes and to irrigate crops. Our drop will travel across the country via pipelines. Millions of cubic meters of water are lost every day in the world due to pipe leaks. In Israel, several companies have developed advanced technologies that detect and prevent water loss in the pipeline so that our drop can reach the agricultural areas fully and safely. Our drop of water will reach its agricultural destination and will still not be thrown away. It will most likely reach crops through the drip irrigation system, a method developed in Israel in which every drop of water is utilized and more agriculture is produced with fewer resources. A true example that illustrates that every drop has tremendous value. Our precious drop went through the whole cycle, from the Mediterranean to the desalination plant, from there to our homes, then recycled and processed via supervised pipelines to the agricultural lands to make the desert bloom. We need to preserve every drop of water and restore our earth for ourselves and for our future generations. And Israel is here to help advance towards a world that is better equipped to face the ecological challenges of the present and of the future.
Welcome to Watergen. We create water from air for people everywhere. And this machine can create up to 900 liters of pure, clean, healthy drinking water per day just from the air. All you need to do is just push a button and fresh drinking water dispensed. The machine takes the air from the atmosphere, condensing it through our patented heat exchanger that can create up to 5 times more water per 1 kilowatt of energy than any other technology on the market, and can create water in any climate conditions on Earth.
מחסור במים הוא משבר שקיים היום בעולם. המשבר הזה ילך ויחמיר עם השנים הבאות. שליש מהעולם עדיין שותה מים שאינם ראויים לשתייה. ולכן מים שהם באים ממקור אוויר הוא מקור שהוא מתחדש, מקור שאינו מזהם מקורות מים אחרים, והוא גם נקי יותר מכל מקורות המים האחרים שנמצאים בקרקע.
This is the first ever atmospheric water generator integrated into a car. This car can produce drinking water while you drive it. This water can be used for drinking or for any other purposes like technical water and other assistance that the car needed.
This room is where the magic happens. We envelop here many methods, including traditional microbiology, biochemistry, and molecular biology to better understand what are the microbes or microorganisms that surround the machine, how we prevent biofouling, and by that we secure the water safety.
Today the machines are operating in South America, in Southeast Asia, Africa, the Gulf, here in Israel, and even in the Gaza Strip, in hospitals and in city centers, providing the people of Gaza fresh, clean drinking water.
And then
Internet for Bees, underground sensors that can detect how much water a tree's roots need. Vertically grown tomatoes and cucumbers. Drones that can harvest crops and herd cows hands-free. Here are 5 Israeli agricultural technologies that are changing the world. Joe is one of the most professional and seasoned shepherds you'll find. A shepherd's job is to find food, water, and shelter for its herd, protect it from predators, and preserve the unity of the group. What if I told you that this could now be done from the comfort of an air-conditioned car? Meet Noam and Tvir, 2 farmers from the Upper Galilee, who developed a drone-based method for cow shepherds that is efficient, quick, and easy. They established Bee-Free Agro, a company that uses a drone named Joe to transfer up to 1,000 cattle herds across huge fields with 0 human involvement. Throughout history, farmers have always looked up towards the clouds to anticipate the rain. Today's farmers, however, must deal with an entirely different cloud. Meet CropX. The company developed a cloud-based platform that integrates data from unique soil sensors to help farmers optimize their irrigation and fertilization programs. The result, a revolution in the decision-making process for agricultural field management. Data is collected and processed from unique soil sensors along with satellite imagery and more. The information layers produces insights that help farmers streamline irrigation and fertilization plans, thus saving about 40% in water and 20% in fertilizer and increasing crop yields by about 10%. Our cities are indeed smarter, but they are also bigger and more crowded. Serious battles take place over green patches in urban areas where crops can be grown. But who said that crops have to take up a lot of surface area? Vertical Field's innovative urban farms create independently local food that is more accessible than ever using vertical space. Vertical Field's cutting-edge technology has revolutionized the field of urban agriculture, forging a new era in the modern urban ecosystem. Advanced sensors and monitors, LED lighting, and proprietary modular pods allow crops to grow in optimal indoor conditions year-round. The company's vertical farm provides a regular supply of fresh food that is grown on-site and free of chemical pesticides, ensuring food security 365 days a year. Imagine autonomous drones that hover above you in the orchard, select which fruit is ripe for picking, harvest it, and prepare it for transportation. Sound futuristic? Absolutely. Enter Travel Aerobotics. They developed autonomous drones for agriculture that are designed to make up for the shortage of fruit picking human hands. The drone is equipped with a specialized robotic arm and a bunch of sensors that allow it to pick fruit from trees with no human involvement and knows how to detect the ripeness of the fruit. The robots operate as a team, tethered to a ground unit, which collects the fruit, fills the bin, and continues down the row of trees. Internet for bees, yes, that is actually a thing. The honeybee has a very important job in our lives. The pollination process of bees is responsible for about 1/3 of all of the food that we consume. Parallel to the pollination process is a phenomenon known as colony collapse, which causes the death of bees and can lead to the loss of crops. Instead of beekeepers having to take care of beehives manually, Israeli startup Bee Hero aims to transform the beehive into a smart beehive. Bee Hero uses technology which combines algorithms and big data to collect information in real time on the beehive and its environment. The data is then stored on the cloud and analyzed through machine learning algorithms. Finally, the information is transferred to the beekeepers in real time, allowing them to identify and address problems quickly and efficiently. Early detection of any problems can help beekeepers prevent damage and actually improve the beehives over time. Impressive, right? From bees to cows to apples to cucumbers, these Israeli agricultural technologies are building the future.
That is really amazing. And just a couple of things that I wanted to note about it. The machine that goes out and picks fruit, they've actually used that for apples, oranges, and avocados, and they're working on other things. And you know, you hear about labor shortages in farms. That could be a big deal. The robot that herds the animals is actually, they've discovered, less stressful than the animals than the traditional way of herding animals, which gives you actually better beef that's grown that way. The Watergen has been used, you know, even in desert climates, they can get water out of the air. And this company has done a great job also in natural disasters like Puerto Rico. They were there quickly on the scene after the big hurricane, and they set it up so people had drinking water. And then, of course, following water through the different stages of the film we saw, when Lois, Jerry, and a few of the rest of us were in Israel, we, thanks to Jerry's recommendation, made a trip to the water reclamation plant, and it's amazing stuff. So let me ask, does anyone have any questions before I move to the next area of technology?
Mark, it's Faye. I don't have a question, but I wanted to share with all of you that a few years ago, we have a friend who lives in Greece and was building a home on a small island facing the Aegean in the Cyclades chain of islands. And they couldn't figure out a way to get real water into his new home. So he had, you know, plants on the veranda and things like that. So Alex traveled to Israel and went to one of the desalination plants, and they were able to help him to share that information back with the engineers in Greece so that he could have, really great water. And if you go to the lower level of his villa, you can see a small desalination. And so it was really exciting that you showed that video, because he was so excited to tell us about it. And we weren't really sure what it meant or what it did, but that video you showed just actually, wow. Gay and I were like, wow, that's just like Alex's house. So yeah, they're really wonderful about sharing their knowledge with other people, which makes you very proud. Yeah.
Thank you, Faye.
And Mark,
Yeah.
I can give you a quick update on the, I guess, a similar Watergen technology developed in Israel. At Technion University several years ago, they had a brainstorming session about technologies that might be possible for specifically improving water from the air. And they thought up this technology. There was a graduate student at Technion who developed in principle the theory, and now they have a working prototype at the university. And this technology isn't reliant on the cooling, cooling the air to precipitate out the water. So
Okay.
it has the advantage that it's independent. It operates independently of the temperature of the air. It doesn't require more energy.
Technology continues to amaze me.
So look for that. It's called H2OLL. H2OLL.
Oh, okay. I'll take an eye out for that. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move to the next area, automotive technology. So how is that a huge industry in Israel? Israel doesn't make cars. Israel makes software for cars. And there are more than 500 transportation startups. The one that's, I think, most exciting is Mobileye, a company that develops sensors and artificial intelligence and computers in order to head towards self-driving cars. So, and that was probably one of the biggest startup stories in Israel when Intel bought Mobileye several years ago. I think that they're going to spin it off as a publicly traded company. There's a lot of rumors to that, so I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, Rabbi says somebody who is a former member of our congregation lives in Israel and works for Mobileye. Okay, interesting. So the next thing I'm going to show, there are a lot of applications in Mobileye. It's in many cars today with, collision avoidance and so forth. And we'll see a little film that describes some of that. But there are also applications for self-driving vehicles. And one of them is an Israeli company called Move It that makes a taxi, and we'll see that. And then I think most of us are familiar with Waze. You can have it on your phone. It gives you driving routes, and then Google acquired Waze and put that same technology into Google Maps. So you're probably using this Israeli technology today. So let's take a look at these.
Since the wheel started revolving, human motion has been constantly evolving. But some problems still needed solving. Roads are packed, drivers racing, transportation has its costs. Something had to be invented to prevent the massive loss in human lives. And it suddenly clicked. The answer lies in minimizing human error to avoid collision. We had a vision. It was 20 years ago. We gave the car an eye and AI so that you and I would have a safer ride, and introduced the IQ chip that helps you maintain distance, remain on track, that keeps you intact. And it wasn't in vain. We gained your trust. We went from 1 to 100 million IQ chips and counting, millions of accidents spared. But we won't stop there. Our vision is big, our mission incomplete. Safer roads, cleaner air. We won't rest until mobility is accessible for everyone, everywhere. And we dare dream bigger. We see far. Autonomous cars. Picture yourself sitting in your car, relaxing, closing your eyes, taking a nap. Someone else will do the driving for you. No more measuring distance, no more making decisions. It's not a fantasy. We have the tech. The day is near. A revolution in mobility is taking place. The future is here.
This might look like a typical SUV, but in fact, it is the Mobileye fully autonomous robotaxi for up to 6 passengers, and it's fully electric. It has a 100 kilowatt hour battery, meaning all-day battery life. Let's take a look at the Mobileye Drive Sensor Suite. We've got 11 surround cameras providing a 360-degree field of vision around the car, 4 corner radars, and 1 front and 1 rear radar behind the bumpers. Finally, 3 long-range LiDARs in this sleek manta ray roof unit, and 6 short-range LiDARs, 2 at the back, 2 at the front, and 1 on each side. What about processing all the input from these sensors and powering the advanced algorithms making the driving decisions? All that IQ5-based compute is housed in this elegant little box. Residents of Tel Aviv and Munich will be the first to ride the Mobileye robotaxi by simply downloading the Move It app and hailing an AV.
Okay, so you want to see how far in the future that is? Tel Aviv and Munich this year. They're making them start with a driver backup until they prove the technology, but the technology's there. So let's take a look at Waze, and then I'll stop for questions.
Over the last 20 years, Israel has become a tech powerhouse. They often refer to Israel as startup nation. Well, this is pretty cool. One of the companies that got started here, Waze. You all know Waze. It's how we all get around. Waze started in Israel. They're in that building right there. Let's go. What's happening here? Is this you working on a specific problem? Where is this area that you're looking at?
So this is my route home, actually.
You're just working on your route home?
Yeah.
There's a whole world out there that wants help, and this guy is just working on his route home. Oh, yeah. I bet you tell people there's a traffic jam when there isn't, so they go a different way, and you have an easy commute.
Okay, I had to put that in. Any questions on automobile technology? Okay, so we're going to take a look at medical technology. Boy, there was so much to choose from. I highlighted the ones that really excited me. Some of the ones we're going to see here are in use today. Some of them are more in a prototype. And then we get into the life-changing technologies. Those are all real. We saw a little bit about Rewalk earlier, but Rewalk, Eye Control, Orcam, we get to that video. That's they're all out there in a production for being used in the real world, and they are amazing. If you have not seen these, you'll be amazed.
Doctors have been performing surgery for centuries, but surgery in 2019 is a little bit different. Doctors are now relying on robots, lasers, and even augmented reality to save lives. Here are 3 Israeli tech companies that are changing the face of medicine. Mazor Robotics has created a robot that can perform, that's right, spinal surgery. It integrates advanced analytical tools, precision guidance, and 3D imaging technologies. Mazor means to heal in Hebrew, and that's precisely what the company is doing.
המערכת היא מערכת רובוטית, וזה אומר דיוק יותר מאשר יד אנושית, באפשרותנו לבצע תכנון מקדים של הניתוח, והרופא שמבצע את התכנון בעצם יכול לראות את הניתוח עוד לפני שהוא התחיל.
What happens when surgery meets augmented reality? Let's just say incredible possibilities for the field of medicine. Bionics has pioneered a visual platform for surgeons which uses augmented reality during surgery.
The heart of the system is the augmented reality display that is used by the surgeons and provides a very high resolution stereoscopic imagery. All the data is projected to the surgeon in the very critical phases of surgery.
Innovation is part of Elbit's DNA. Bionics is a good example of how we leverage technology used in aviation to revolutionize the world of medical operation.
Technology is all about the future, but when it comes to diagnosing a patient, the past is pretty important.
At Zebra Medical Vision, we're teaching computers how to read and diagnose medical imaging scans at scale. We're using millions of CT scans, MRIs, X-rays, mammograms in order to teach computers how to detect specific findings that will serve clinicians and hospitals in improving patient care.
Augmented reality and robots are less scary than you would think. And Israeli startups like Mazor Robotics, Bionics, and Zebra Medical Vision are closer than ever to discovering the next medical breakthrough, one surgery at a time. If you care, share.
The world of medicine is transforming from open surgery to minimally invasive interventions. As a cardiologist performing these procedures, I rely exclusively on medical imaging to guide me. Over the past few years, real-time 3D imaging has become a crucial tool as our procedures become more and more complex. I need advanced visualization tools and better ways to interact with the images.
The Holoscope Eye is the first and only holographic system delivering a full and tailored solution for real-time medical applications. What makes our product truly unique is the display of a real 3D hologram with unparalleled usability. Our freestanding system relieves the user from the burden of wearing a head-mounted device and enables prolonged use without any fatigue or nausea.
Amazing.
The expression of a child that can read all of a sudden is priceless.
You will never walk again does not need to be the fate of people with spinal cord injury as a result of cutting-edge technology. The ReWalk is an exoskeleton that enables people living with paraplegia, in a wheelchair, the ability to stand up, to walk, to go up and down stairs, and to regain some of the mobility that was taken away from them as a result of their paralysis. The ReWalk allows people using it to get out into nature, into the community. We envision a future in which ReWalk would be readily available for a vast majority of people via their insurance coverage, similar to other medical devices and technologies which are available today.
הילדים שלי לא מכירים אותי כאילו שאני עומד, אז ברגע הראשון שאומרים אותי עומד, עד היום, הם הדבר הראשון שאומרים שכאילו אבא אתה גבוה, אז זה נותן לי ממש את ההרגשה הנפשית טובה.
Eye control is a communication device for locked-in people, which means people who can only move their eyes, they are locked in their bodies, and eye control enables by tracking the movements of the pupil to transmit it to a small computer that generates the speech for those people and enables them to communicate 24/7. The device is, we don't have any screen in the device, so instead of the visual feedback, we have an audio feedback so that the patient hears what he wants to say instead of see it. The founders in the company are related to locked-in patients, friends of or even ALS patients themselves. And this is one of the major reasons why we started the company.
green light.
We found that the hardest thing when someone is losing their sight is the lack of information. So we aim to provide people with as much information possible to help them with their daily lives.
Captain Crunch cereal.
So people can continue working, they can go shopping, they can pay their own bills and be independent, and they're never stuck alone. The Orcam My Eye is a revolutionary smart camera that can tell you what it sees. And it is extremely useful for people with visual impairments. When you put the camera on your glasses, it'll read any text on any surface to you. It can be something that you hold in your hand. It can be a sign on the street. It can tell you people around you. If it knows them, it'll say their names. If it doesn't know them, it'll describe them to you.
Joe?
I can read fluently every day things which I never did in the last 20 years.
Pretty amazing. When on one of our Israel trips, we went to a high-tech incubator in Jerusalem, and Orcam was their biggest success. And you know, you saw their most advanced product that's out on the market today. People who are blind or nearly blind, just amazing what it can do. But they have other products as well for that people can use. For people who are dyslexic and want to read a page, they've got a product that does that. Just amazing stuff. And the Rewalk was actually invented by a person who is a quadriplegic. So he can't use Rewalk because you need your upper body in order to use it. But again, that's really out there. And as I said in the video, the only obstacle to getting people back walking is insurance. It's sad. I mean, the technology is there. Any questions or comments about medical technology? Like I said, that stuff really just blew me away. So we'll go on to the next topic, which is cybersecurity.
There is a cyber superpower coming from the Middle East. My name is India, and today we are going to find out how Israel became a world leader in cybersecurity and how Israeli technology could be protecting you.
Israel is one of the world's largest exporters of cybersecurity technology, with over 90% of Fortune 500 companies using Israeli cybersecurity products.
Right now, I am in Israel's very own cybersecurity capital, Beersheba. In the middle of the desert, you can see companies like IBM have cybersecurity labs here. But why are these big tech players coming all the way to this small country in the Middle East? Well, cybersecurity is the protection of computer systems and networks against attack. And you see, it is no secret that Israel deals with plenty of war. But what you may not know is that much of it cannot be seen. Right now, Israel is the #1 most targeted country by hackers. As cybercrime increases, so must cyber defense. Israel has a lot of cyber talent, and this talent comes largely from the Israeli army, also known as the IDF. The IDF selects the nation's best coders and hackers as teenagers to serve in elite cyber warfare units. This is because almost all Israelis are required to serve in the army when they turn 18. And many of them serve in the famous 8200 intelligence unit, or in Hebrew, it is known as 8200. Many soldiers in 8200 specialize in cyber defense. It is the largest unit in the IDF.
So many Israelis from Unit 8200 go on to fill top positions in Silicon Valley or found their own tech startups. If you were in Unit 8200, you may have even served alongside the founders of Wix and Waze.
Many believe that Israeli cyber tech is going to change the lives of people like you and me.
Hi, I'm Yotam Ben Ezra, and I'm VP of Products at SafeBridge. In Israel, we develop a lot of technologies to help people live their lives in a secure way. For example, SafeBridge helps the organization attack themselves before the attackers actually do that. When attacks are successful, we help the organization identify what made the attack successful and then suggest how to remediate.
Today, Israeli cyber tech companies are receiving record-breaking amounts of funding. This will benefit us all, especially as we fight against one of the biggest threats the world faces, cyber war.
So as the cyber industry in Israel continues to grow, talent is getting harder to find. And soon, maybe you can find yourself in the Israeli cyber world too. This is the future of cybersecurity.
This is Inside Israel.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
So about a third of all the worldwide investment in cybersecurity, a third of the dollars is going to Israel. That is amazing for a tiny little country. Okay, any questions? Because I think we're going to have some time for some of the fun stuff at the end that I put together. Okay, so 2 questions. Can goldfish drive? And what are my favorite Israel low-tech innovations? Anybody have a guess on the goldfish? And so we'll see this video, and you're going to see on the left side of the screen a colored rectangle. That is the target. If the goldfish can get the car to the target, it gets food. You can see the target there.
Yeah.
This is at Ben Gurion University.
Well, here we see a fish inside the fish-operated vehicle. And with this vehicle, the fish gets to navigate on land, a place where fish usually don't go. And it gets to solve a navigational task, while at the same time, it learns both how to operate this vehicle and also it learns what their task is and how to solve it the most efficient way. Surprisingly, it doesn't take the fish a long time to learn how to drive the vehicle. They're very confused at first, they don't know what's going on, but they're very quick to realize that there's a correlation between their movement and the movement of the machine that they're in. So it's something that they learn quite quickly.
And they do this, they take the fish outdoors and have them driving around in this contraption. It is, you ask, well, what's the use of this high-tech device? And the people at Ben Gurion University are doing basic research into how the brain works. So it's not a particularly focused on making, you're not going to see fish driving cars replacing self-driving cars, for example. But they teach the fish how to do this, and they put it at different places, and the fish figures out how to get to the target. And if the fish misses the target, they know how to back up and then go get the target. And then they actually, after they taught this to the fish, they stopped working with one of the particular fish, and a year later, put it back in the car, and the fish remembered how to do it a year later. So there's a lot going on in even the brains of fish that we don't understand yet. Just amazing. Okay, so now Mark's favorite, low-tech. Rhonda can't play because she knows what it is. But this is really, in the world of innovation, this is amazing.
Israel has the best and most imaginative ice cream in the world. You thought it was think again. Israel rules. And what's more Israeli than Bamba? El Agenda is the only place in Israel that makes Bamba ice cream. Okay, so we have Bambas here. We need to put some base flavor. And now, your friend. You look like the Bamba baby with this hair.
All right. Yeah. Now the ice cream is coming. And what are we gonna put inside?
More Bamba?
Of course.
Ashkara Bamba ice cream.
The Bamba.
I did it. What's the most scoops you put in one cone?
5.
Show me. I like the tiramisu. Dark chocolate.
We like more. Are you sure?
Yes. Boom. Me, Yuval, Salom, Uri, and Ronit. Wait, I'm in the middle of Independence Day Masuot. Masuot. It's a fountain of chocolate.
Yes. 1.
The fountain of youth.
No.
This place, Delicato in Haifa, has some of the weirdest food in Israel. What's the most craziest flavor you have here?
Orange, olive oil, and salt. Watermelon and Bulgari cheese. Also, we have mozzarella and basil. Dates and walnuts.
I want to try the olive oil thing. Wow.
Mozzarella and basil.
This is pizza ice cream, Olga.
You give someone to try, to smile, and you're happy.
I'm a chef, by the way. I was qualified 30 minutes ago in the other place, and now I can make ice cream. How was the ice cream you just had here?
It was really good.
High stand, one of the best. Is it better than the American ice creams?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
You go with the cone or you go with the cup?
Cone.
Cone or cup?
Cone. Cup.
Always a cup.
Yeah.
Lick or bite?
Bite. I'd rather lick. I'd lick first.
Bite. To bite.
Bite. A bite.
To bite.
You gotta go quick. We have ice cream for dogs that's based on coconut and banana.
And you give it for free?
Yes.
For dogs?
Yes.
The things I do for Israel 21C. I'm gonna eat a doggy ice cream. Not bad.
Okay, excellent. So my last slide that I had, thanks for participating today. And please let us know what Israel topics you'd like to hear more about. We're planning many different Israel topics, and we like your input. So you can send email to me or to Rhonda Hager, and we will see if we can put a program together. Any last chance, anybody have any questions? Bamba is, it looks like Cheetos, but they're peanut flavored, not cheese flavored.
Thank you, Mark. That was great.
Yes, thank you. That was really good.
Thanks, Mark. That was so amazing. I love the videos you shared.
You're very welcome. Yeah, it is the staple food in Israel, Bamba, right? That's it, Rabbi.
Doritos in America.
Yeah, yeah. Bamba,
Okay.
everybody in Israel knows, yeah.
Bamba is delicious, and they sell it in Trader Joe's also.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Yes. Oh, Rabbi has a question.
There's a lot of Israeli snacks and foods that are sold in the Trader Joe's in different places, also in what I
It's a longer question. I'll give you a microphone. Otherwise, I'm going to repeat.
It's about ways.
Oh, it's about ways. Okay.
Google purchase ways.
Google purchase ways. Yes.
Kept both companies separate. Is that mostly because of user interaction, for how it's designed, or why didn't they just make one company?
Oh, you mean what is Waze a separate application? They have it, all the technology built into Google Maps. Why separately? It's just a marketing thing that they feel, yeah, the user interface is different, and they just feel like from a marketing perspective, it works better for them. You know, some people say, oh, no, you use Google Maps. I'm going to use Waze. You get the same thing, except of course, if that guy decides that he's going to lie to you so quickly. Okay, well then, thank you once again, and this was a lot of fun putting it together. And I'm sure we can do this again in a year or two, because there'll be lots more new technology. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.